It's a brand new year, a year that's different from the last year.
And to honor those differences, we decided to examine our favorite films and TV shows and the books that they're adapted from.
This week, we have one simple question for you.
Who is John Rambo? I'm Michael Truly.
And I'm Casey Redmond.
So without further ado,
and no restraint on spoilers,
what's the difference?
The character of Rambo originated with David Morrell's premiere novel First Blood, published in 1972.
Its movie adaptation in 1982 offered the earliest depiction of the psychological condition referred to at the time as the Vietnam Vet Syndrome. The film begins with John Rambo coming to the fictional town of Hope, Washington.
Here's the difference right off the bat. The name John was only given to him for the film and doesn't appear in the novel.
John Rambo's here to find an old army buddy, but learns he's died of cancer from Agent Orange. Grieving, he's picked up by Sheriff Teasel, driven to the edge of town, and asked to leave because he looks like a drifter.
Quick difference, in the novel, Teasel is the chief of police.
While in the film, he's made a sheriff in order to suggest the Sheriff of Nottingham.
I'm gonna cut your heart out with a spoon!
After being dropped off at the border of town, John turns around and heads back across the border, which angers Teasel, who arrests him unjustly and drags him to jail.
In the novel, Rambo's hitchhiking through Kentucky. Though he is similarly picked up by Teasel and taken to the edge of town, he makes several attempts to return until finally Teasel has no choice but to arrest him on vagrancy charges.
In the film, the police strip John of his belongings, and one of them is the now iconic Rambo knife.
But there is no Rambo knife in the novel!
No sir, not one.
The next difference is Rambo's breaking point at the station.
In the film, Art Galt, the head deputy, brutally harasses Rambo, triggering memories of his torture in the war. Finally, when one of the officers comes at him with a straight razor to cut his hair, he overpowers 3 officers and fights his way out of the station. But no one dies. This is incredibly important. No one dies.
In the novel, Rambo submits to everything Teasel wants, strip searches included. He's not abused, but his being trapped inside a cold, wet, small cell gives Rambo the flashback to his days as a POW. So when Teasel cuts Rambo's hair, Rambo begins to panic. When a deputy comes close to him with a straight razor, Rambo takes it from him and rips open his abdomen. And that guy ends up totally dead, like as dead as you can get. Score 1 for the book!
Notably in the film, Rambo is clothed again when he escapes from jail.
While in the novel, he runs off in his birthday suit. In the novel, Rambo steals a motorcycle and makes a run for it, eventually getting the help from a still owner who hides him for the night.
In the film, the police chase the motorcycle into the mountains and Galt pursues in a helicopter. Spotting Rambo from the air, Galt disregards Teasel's orders and attempts to shoot him. Rambo, cornered, throws a rock at the helicopter. The helicopter pitches and Galt falls to his death. Rambo admits to the accidental death of Galt and tries to give himself up, but Teasel vows to avenge his friend's death. Galt is the only person Rambo kills in the film, and it's an accident.
Here's one of 2 major differences between the novel and the film. In the novel, the aggressive stance of the U.S. administration and military is equated with the tactics and abuse of authority of Chief of Police Teasel.
This is a balance that the movie abandons.
In the novel, chapters alternate between Rambo's and Teasel's point of view as they take turns being the hunter and the hunted. We learn more about Teasel's character in the book, his Korean War hero past, the disappointment and pain that haunts him, the personal issues between his recent divorce, and how all of this plays out in the public war games with the drifter Rambo. Teasel was a veteran of the Korean War, a war which most people had forgotten about by the time that the Vietnam War, and by extension Rambo, was gaining attention. In the novel, Teasel is less a bully and more of an establishment hero. Rambo is much less admirable, killing 15 or 20 of his fellow citizens, he loses count, and even more important to him, killing for personal and emotional rather than ethical reasons.
Morrell has said that the intention was to make him as motivated and sympathetic as Rambo, because the viewpoints that divided America both came from deep, well-meaning convictions. In the film, all figures of authority are challenged. Teasel is less sympathetic and more like the abusive chief of police in the heat of the night.
David Morrell himself expressed the difference in Rambo's characterization best when he stated, "In my novel, Rambo is furious about what he's been through in Vietnam. He's confused and tormented, and in many ways causes the small war that he fights."
In the movie, though, he's a victim, a reluctant warrior.
In both versions, an extensive manhunt leads to Rambo hiding out in a cave.
And gives us one of our most minor differences.
In the book, it's a bat cave.
But in the film, it's a rat cave. Some symbolic change? No, it was made because rats are easier to wrangle than bats. They also happen to allude to scenes in earlier war movies, which certainly doesn't hurt. In the film, Rambo uses guerrilla tactics to quickly disable the small, disorganized team team, severely wounding but not killing the deputies. In the chaos, Rambo confronts Teasel with a knife to the throat, warning that he could have killed the deputies and that provoked further, he will fight harder.
In the novel, Rambo traps Teasel and his men on the cliffside, taking out the tracker and his dogs. Rambo then hunts down the sheriff and his deputies, killing everyone except Teasel.
In both versions, Teasel regroups and the state police come to help, while Rambo is trapped in the Bat/Rat Cave.
After the initial manhunt goes down, we're introduced to Sam Troutman, who commanded Rambo back in Vietnam.
In the film, the captain becomes a colonel, giving the military man increased authority.
In the novel, Captain Troutman, the Green Beret who trained Rambo, arrives to help with the manhunt. He chastises Teasel for his sloppy police work and for labeling him as trouble rather than as troubled. He accepts responsibility, admitting that he has trained Rambo to kill, sent him overseas, and brought him back with no skills except killing. Rambo barely remembers Troutman, and even after hearing his voice, Rambo still strains to recall him. Rambo doesn't reply to him, and in fact says to himself, "The bastard, turning on your own kind," referencing Troutman choosing to assist Teasel.
In the film, Colonel Troutman arrives explaining that he trained Rambo and the army has sent him to rescue them from this highly trained war machine. He makes them aware of Rambo's capabilities as an expert in guerrilla warfare, survivalism, and disposing of enemy personnel. He urges Teasel to let Rambo go and let him bring the soldier back to the army where he belongs. While Rambo's in the cave, he and Troutman speak on the radio, and they clearly share a deep history and close connection. Troutman is the only person who understands and can really connect to him. Then, in the film, the state police clumsily fire a rocket launcher at Rambo's hideout, so everyone thinks Rambo is dead and buried.
But in the novel, they are convinced that they have him cornered in the cave and should wait him out and then arrest him. In both mediums, Rambo escapes, but in the novel, he steals a police cruiser.
In the film, he flees in an army truck.
What follows is a similar second manhunt through town.
The difference being that in the film, Rambo damages a lot of property in his hunt for Teasel, but doesn't kill anyone else.
In the novel, the town suffers casualties as Rambo's hunt results in the deaths of many police officers, civilians, and National Guardsmen.
Which brings us to the biggest difference between the two versions of Rambo's story, the ending.
In the novel, Teasel surprises Rambo as he rampages through the town and shoots him in the chest. Rambo wounds Teasel in the stomach with a return shot. Both men are essentially dying, but are still spurred on by pride and a desire to justify their actions. Rambo, severely wounded, plans to kill himself by detonating a stick of dynamite, but decides to let Teasel kill him in a more honorable way. Rambo fires at Teasel, and to his surprise and disappointment, hits him. For a moment, he reflects on how he had missed his chance at a decent death, because he is now too weak to light the fuse on the dynamite. But then suddenly feels the explosion he had expected, not in the stomach, but in the head. Rambo dies satisfied as he's come to a fitting end. Aww. Troutman took the top of his head off with a shotgun. Teasel relaxes, experiences a moment of affection for Rambo, and then dies succumbing to his wounds.
This scene of so-called military compassion, where Rambo is executed as one would a wounded animal, never happens in the movie. While a version of the scene was filmed, where Rambo begs Troutman to kill him, forces his hand, and ends up dead, test audiences found that conclusion to be too depressing. So the script was rewritten for Rambo to live. Armed with an M60 machine gun from the truck, Rambo destroys several businesses in an attempt to locate Teasel, ultimately spotting him on the roof of the police station. Rambo darts under the skylight to draw fire. Rambo returns fire, injuring Teasel, who then falls through the skylight. Rambo steps over him, prepared to kill him, but Colonel Troutman appears and tells him the mission is over. The Colonel's challenge stops the action. It provides an opening for Rambo to explain the mission will never be over. In a shocking change from the mumbling, inarticulate hero sucking it up, never letting on that he may be afraid or that anything is wrong, Rambo breaks down and cries at the Colonel's feet. The breakdown scene is recognition that the mental health issues evident in so many veterans can no longer be dismissed as personal weakness and idiosyncrasy. After the Colonel listens to his breakdown, lets the broken Rambo embrace him, he walks Rambo out in custody, handcuffs and torture scars hidden beneath the officer's military trench coat. In this way, the armed forces in the movie accept responsibility in a more humane and compassionate way and cover up the shame.
Hide your shame now. In the novel, both Rambo and Teasel express sorrow for their actions and both die in the end for the choices they've made.
In the film, neither verbalizes any form of regret and they both live. The many changes between novel and movie can be explained in different ways.
It's possible many changes reflect the changes in American society between the novel's publication in 1972 and the film's production in 1982.
A lot happened in that span of time. The withdrawal of troops, the fall of Saigon and its renaming as Ho Chi Minh City, and the eventual return of prisoners of war. The defeat of the nation born by returned veterans who are shamed, hounded, and demonized.
The establishment has lost some credibility as well. Protesting students were shot by National Guardsmen at Kent State, and President Nixon was forced to resign for ethical deficiencies.
American citizens have been held hostage in Iran.
Covert American military interventions have shifted from Asia to Central and South America.
Veterans who were not wounded are still sick and dying, although the government continues to deny any connection to Agent Orange and other toxins dumped on the enemy.
And by 1982, several movies have already released that have begun to explore what went wrong and what we should have learned. Indeed, Roger Ebert's review of First Blood complains, "We've heard all this before, the ranting against the unfair treatment the vets received upon their return."
Like the opening scene where Rambo learns that the last member of his team has died, this ranting, final breakdown scene was added for the movie.
That's it for Rambo.
Wait, no it's not, because they're doing another one.
Come back every other Wednesday for more. Let us know what you think of the changes down in the comments.
Did you like the changes they made for the film? Why do you think they made the choices they did, Do you think you could do a better job? Well, it's too late, they made it.
And remember to subscribe to Cinefix for more awesome content about your favorite films and TV shows.